The big question that we get is why are tiny houses on a trailer? Brian, do you want to go ahead and take a swing at that? And then I'll add my 2 cents where appropriate.
Sure. I think initially when the tiny house movement really kicked off, the initial thought was that building a tiny house on a trailer allowed you to circumvent a lot of the building codes, almost to the point where it would become a non-issue. And I think as the movement's progressed and grown, we've matured in our understanding of building codes and zonings, and we realize that that isn't necessarily true. It certainly does help. I think it, kind of allows people more flexibility with the building codes, but it isn't the silver bullet that most people kind of claim it to be. So I think a lot of people, in terms of building codes, think that all you have to do is build on a trailer, you're fine. But I still do recommend it to build on a trailer, even if it isn't that magic bullet, because, like I said, it brings you into a legal gray area that kind of helps you along in your journey to becoming legal with a tiny house. And it also provides flexibility so you can move your house around if need be.
So what do you mean it's not the magic bullet? What is the code issues people are facing that it allows you to circumvent?
Sure, yeah. So the big issues with building codes and zoning when it comes to tiny houses really is that you're able to build a structure legally without a permit typically because it's such a small structure, usually under certain square footage, or in some cities they say no dimension longer than X number of feet. In my city, I think it's 12 feet. And there's also a couple other key minimum requirements that are pretty standard throughout the country. With that, it seems on its face like you would be fine because you don't need a permit to do all this. But the trick is when you have to actually, when you state that you actually live in a tiny house, you dwell in a tiny house, it's a whole different game. And you do need to get a permit because you're going to be dwelling in that house.
So it sounds like the minimum square foot size is what drives the trailer much of the time. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, I think that was the initial thought behind it, is that on a trailer, it's a small enough size that it doesn't meet that. It certainly is a legal gray area. We haven't really seen like a court case basically to say that, your local city has actual jurisdiction over a tiny house, because if you think about it, a tiny house is a registered vehicle. It's a trailer. And that falls under the Department of Transportation and their purview. So I think there is an interesting legal question there of, does a building code enforcement person actually have any power or jurisdiction over a tiny house? We don't know. And so it's something that is probably going to come up in the near future. And until we do, we don't really know.